Hello everybody, and thanks for tuning in again for our second video. I can only apologise that it's taken so long to do the second video. Numerous reasons really. A lot of it to do with the lockdown and the availability of parts. Some of the parts have been on order for several weeks. But today we've had a delivery of a few little bits and pieces that are going to get us going again. So I was just going to explain to the stage that I'm at now and how we're going to move forward with it. And some of the lessons we've learned as well from the first video, it seemed a little bit wobbly and disjointed, so we're going to film everything now on a tripod, and my son Charlie, who's doing the filming, has invested in a new phone as well, so hopefully the quality of the video is going to get a little bit better as well. Right, so to move forward, whilst we've not been filming, I've basically been stripping all the frame down. I've got the welding done and we've been removing the paint, and I've invested in a new paint system from Buzzweld Chassis and One. Some of you might be already familiar with it, but I've read the details and it seems like the best option for us to get a good finish on the chassis. So that's how we're going to move forward with the chassis. So moving on, whilst I've been off filming, I've basically taken off the rotten parts of the chassis and re-welded them. So I just wanted to point out, as you can see from the old footage before I've done any welding to it, there was quite a lot of rust around like the bump stops and where the cross member met, both on the bottom and on the top. So I just wanted to show you what I've actually done. I've cut it off and I've got rid of all the rust. I've took it back to good solid steel. I've renewed a couple of the parts that are on the chassis and the hangers for the bump stops as well. And then I've welded all new plating and formed new dumb irons, I believe they're called. So I've fashioned some of those and welded them all up, put them in place and welded them back to the front cross member. Likewise with the top member as well, I've renewed all the parts. I've taken it back to good solid steel, and I've tried to make the brakes in the chassis around some of the brackets just to disguise them a little bit. This one's got a little bit more dressing up to do before it gets painted, but that's the general idea. But again, it's all nice and solid and straight again. Where I'm going to go from here is I've got the front spring hangers to go on, and the bushes for the leaf springs. So without those in, I wasn't able to set the leaf springs up to give us the right dimensions for the spring hangers at the front. So that's one of the things that's now being delivered. We've actually got it here, or one of them. So what I'll do is I'll continue to give that a good clean out inside, and I'll put them in as a temporary fit and reset up the suspension just to make sure I'm getting all the geometry right on the front of the chassis. These patches here as well, this is an original patch, and there was also another one on here which wasn't too good. I think the material they used to patch it in was quite thin and feeble, and I thought it was beneficial anyway, so I've taken it off. Again, I've welded on good thick steel back to a nice solid part of the chassis. This one I've just basically cleaned up the old one that was there. It had outriggers on and various other parts. Most of the paint's been removed off it now, but there's still a few little areas and tricky little places to get. So that's what I'll be doing after this film, is cleaning it up and getting it prepared for painting. So here I am with the two axles, and there's a couple of little things I wanted to mention about the axles. Firstly, the rear axle's been swapped. It's not actually a short wheelbase Land Rover axle. I think it's off a long wheelbase, because it's the Salisbury axle that's on the back. Now, it's funny, I've done a little bit of research on it, and apparently they are a very good axle and people do like them on the vehicle, although the geometry is not quite right. And I think that's probably why they look a little bit strange to me, because there seems to be like some extra packers and things that shouldn't be there, and I think it's to get the angles balanced up. But saying that, when the vehicle was together, that wasn't one of the problems. It was smoky and it needed restoring, but the axles and the performance of it was fine. It handled well, and there was no sort of it wasn't bouncing around or wobbling or anything like that. So I do believe that the axles and everything have been restored at some time, but probably just sat redundant for a long time and in need of an overhaul. Which brings us on to what I was going to tell you next. Although they all seem to be operating and they're all quite smooth and run really well, they're very, very leaky. So there's lots of oil leaking out of the front here. So the oil seals have obviously gone. Probably the flanges are worn down. So something I'm going to do is not a full restoration and take them all apart and mess on with the gearing inside of them. I'm going to simply give them a good wire brush and clean down and paint them. But I'm also going to change the gaskets in them and the oil seals and probably the flanges as well. Onto the leaf spring suspension. I wanted to point out that this vehicle, when I bought it, had parabolic springs fitted, again probably some time ago. And again, the suspension seemed okay, it wasn't too bad. Now, I've been investigating a little bit to do with this because there's several people who say that they knock them apart and actually clean all the leaves and put them together. But then I've been on some specialist sites where they tell you not actually to do that, and you shouldn't put paint on them because apparently they've got to be the tightest possible fit. And as the years go by and the paint diminishes inside, it causes problems. So although I think it's going to be relatively easy to knock them apart, I'm a bit reluctant to do it. I think what I'm going to do is just give them a good clean up and get off as much surface rust as I can, and probably just paint and maintain the surface that's there. So maybe I'm going a little bit with that. Maybe I still need to do a little bit more research, but that's the plan so far anyway. I'm just going to replace the bushings in them. Same story with the hubs really. They work very well. It's a freewheeling hub. And again, when the vehicle was operational, I put them in and out, and they seem to work just fine. And I'm not really envisioning myself using it in four-wheel drive very often anyway. So most of the time they're going to be unlocked. But again, I'm just going to clean up what's there and give it a good paint and probably do some work on the bolts as well. Either replace them with galvanised or stainless steel, something like that, but just to freshen up. So here we are in my makeshift spray booth. As you can see, it's an old garden gazebo, and although we're indoors in a stable, we get chickens and there's lots of pheasants and stuff coming here, and they basically leave mess everywhere, so I don't want any of that on my paint finishes. So I put the gazebo up inside just to prevent dust and contaminants, that's all. At the moment it's storing the rear tub from the Land Rover, and I just wanted to point out the little bit of work that I'm going to be doing to this, well, quite major work really. So I'm going to take all the pot rivets out the cross members, and then we're going to clean them all up, i.e. sand them or wire brush them, and then paint them all. These are going to be painted in like a chassis black, but the underside of the tub I'm expecting to do in a colour, so I'm wanting that to be in the same green as what I'm going to finish the rest of the body in. The cap-ins on the back as well, I'm going to take them out. I'm going to drill all the pop rivets and the solid rivets out and remove all the cap-ins. And again, I'm going to go through a process of cleaning them up. And again, I'm doing research to it. I'm looking at acid cleans and different stripping solutions and things like that. I spoke to a company that's relatively local to where I live, who do galvanising, and they're a little bit reluctant to do the job for me. I've spoke to them and they said they can do it, and they've done it in the past, but the results are not always that good. And what they put it down to is the lack of cleaning that the customers do. They expect all the parts to be cleaned before they actually hot dip galvanise them. So I'm trying to come up with some good solutions to cleaning all the old galvanise off. And what he said was, as well, there's a lot of glue and paint and things like that on the backs of them, which is quite vital. You get them as clean as you possibly can. So that's going to be a whole new learning curve right there. So again, in the garden gazebo stroke paint booth. It's coming in quite useful for storage. So as you can see, this is some of my yellow passivate that I'm going to be using as I'm plating via electrolysis some of the nuts and bolts and fittings and fixtures to do with the Land Rover. The ones that are done in the zinc, I'm going to also put through a yellow passivate as well, just to make them a little bit more resilient to weather and a little bit harder finish, I believe. So that's the yellow passivate, and that's one of the electric sources, and that's the service kit for the fuel injection pump, which I'll be doing in a totally different environment, dust free. Right, so this is the storeroom. This is where I've got everything I've broken down. I've put in here, and quite complete sections really. So some of it's still got nuts and bolts in and fittings and fixtures that I'll remove and replace, so I don't get anything lost. Rather than taking it all apart and have it in bags, I've just taken like the bigger parts off. So as you can see, the bonnet's over there, the tub for the seats, and the bulkhead as well, which is going to be a major project in itself. There's a few pieces being chopped out, and a few holes in that shouldn't be in, and I'm probably going to replace the footwells in there as well. This is the truck cab, obviously with the lid on, which is going to need doing. You won't be able to see on the film, but the paint finish is terrible on it. It looks like it's been painted several times with a brush, and it's got lots of dents and flaked off paint that's been repainted over, and the rivets in the gully all around it have all been painted in, and some type of sealant in there. But my real bugbear is that the galvanised section on the top has all been painted, and I want it all stripped back, and I want it all to be properly galvanised as it should be. I've got the steering wheel here, and there's a couple of wings, the dashboard, and these are the side pieces. So self-explanatory, this bit's some of the small parts. As you can see, there's the back mud guards and the bump stops, there's bits of exhaust. The handles are the lift handles on the from the back section. There's a diesel pump and all different bits and pieces. Steering relay, tow ball. There's the air filter, the fuel tank. So yeah, just the final little bit, just to wrap things up. I'm Jamie. My son's Charlie, who's doing the filming, and we're going to push on cleaning the chassis up and hopefully have it painted for the next time you tune in. And then after that, we're going to slow down a little bit, and I'm going to be a little bit more specific of the parts. So once the chassis is painted, we'll be doing a service and a refit of the steering relay. We're going to be refitting and servicing all the suspension and the gas struts. The axles are all going to get stripped, and like I said earlier, I'm going to be putting new gaskets and oil seals in them, and hopefully putting things back together. The bit I'm really looking forward to is the engine. I've never really done major works on the engines before, so I'm looking forward to maybe sending it away and getting it skimmed and rebored, putting some new pistons and rockers and setting everything up, redoing the timing and all that sort of thing. I'm really looking forward to doing that. But we'll do it all in small steps, so it's easy to follow. So if I can be of any further assistance to you by answering any of your questions, I'd be happy to do so. Just leave your comments and I'll try and answer as many as I can. And likewise, if any of you guys out there have done them before and you've got any advice for me, I'd be interested to read those as well, and try to prevent me making some mistakes that maybe you have encountered. That'll be most helpful as well. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.